Welcome, everybody. Good evening, good late afternoon, maybe good morning if you're in Hawaii? Peggy, I guess.
No, it's not morning in Hawaii right now.
I don't know. What is it? What time
It's
is it in
two
Hawaii?
o'clock in the afternoon in Hawaii.
Ah, well, I'm giving
But
them
I
too.
thought you were going for other parts of the world.
I was going
Then
for
it
other
might be
parts of the
okay.
world. I undershot. I undershot. Um, all right. Well, tough start. Tough
Well,
crowd.
speaking of, we could ask people to put in the chat as we're waiting for everybody to join where they're
Yeah.
joining from.
Tell us where you're from. Where you at in the world? We're usually very well. We're usually pretty diverse geographically, certainly here in the States, but it's always fun to see where people are again all over the world. Florida folks out of the gates. Okay. I was there a few weeks back, enjoyed myself very much for a festival. Um, okay, Houston, there you go,
Oh, yeah.
Peggy.
Yeah.
You got your New Jersey people, Seattle people, okay, awesome.
Got
Yeah,
some
so
Texas.
let us do some quick introductions and we'll do some housekeeping stuff. Tonight's a really exciting night for us because you may or may not have seen what we put out on socials and kind of direct email, made some announcements. We had a very exciting announcement for us that we have officially partnered with the Princeton Review. And this has been a lot of a long time coming, I guess. We at College A Pro, we consider ourselves really subject matter experts in the affordability, financial aid, FAFSA, CSS profile. How am I going to afford this? What's my budget, right? The money piece of college is kind of our first language, right? But it's so intertwined with the admissions piece, right? You kind of have to have both of those go hand in hand. And we have had some admission services, but again, that's not our first language. And we've sought out a partner for years to be like, look, let's kind of combine forces here. And we always considered the Princeton Review to be the belle of the ball. They've earned that reputation. They are. I wore you guys down, Emily. I wore poor Young down, right? Eventually they succumbed. But we're really excited, and we're really excited about this partnership. We've been doing a ton of collaboration behind the scenes. So tonight's a little bit of our coming out party together. We're going to do what we always do, which is just educate you guys, right? Give you an hour of just great education, give you an opportunity to ask all the questions that are keeping you up at night, whether it's the admission stuff, the financial stuff, everything in between. For those of you that follow along with us, frequently, we get to a ton of questions. Usually we'll get to over 100 questions in any given night. So that's what we're here to do. So we're psyched. Thank you for showing up. And like we always do, right? For those of you that pay attention, our live folks, they always get some goodies. They always get some treats. So stick around to the end, and you're going to find out about the treats that we're offering tonight, which we're super juiced about. My name is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders here at College A Pro. I've been doing this class 2025. So your buddies that just kind of finished this deal, or at least chose their college, that was the 20th class that I've guided through this process. So I've flown a lot of missions here. I share that just to say that hopefully I know what I'm talking about a little bit, but I'm really excited to answer your questions tonight too, and that's a ton of what we're going to do. In the first half, we're going to focus on that financial piece. The second half, we're going to focus on that admissions piece, and then kind of bring it together right at the end. I'm just north of Boston here in our office in Salem, Massachusetts. We're well represented geographically. We got Emily down in Austin, Texas. Peggy, she always makes me tell everybody she's a Jersey girl originally. That's very important that everybody knows that. She's a Jersey girl currently living in Seattle, getting ready to move to Tucson, Arizona. But Peggy, say hi, introduce yourself, and then
Yeah, we're super excited to have Emily tonight because of what Matt said. I've always said it's like this trifecta, right? Academic, personal, and financial fit. They're all equally important, and so this is great for all of you to be able to hear about the whole enchilada tonight. So super excited. I've been doing this longer than I probably want to admit. I came from the financial industry and then focused just on this and started my own business over a decade ago. I have twins that have been through this process. So I get it professionally and I get where you are parent to parent. So you'll get through it. The more you know and understand the sandbox you're playing in, the less stress you're going to have. It's a better relationship with your kids through the whole process. It's a win-win. So thank you for being here. And Emily, you want to just take a minute and say hi before we kick it off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Peg. My name's Emily Vaubel. I'm the director of college admissions counseling at the Princeton Review. My first class that I worked with at the high school level was the class of 2013. So I've been doing this for a little over a decade now, helping students through the college application process. Started on the high school side, then came to the Princeton Review. But yeah, I'm really excited about the partnership with College Aid Pro. At the Princeton Review, we have definitely always considered finances and financial aid as a part of our process while counseling students, but we haven't directly been able to advise on those financial aid forms, appeals, things like that. So we're super excited to be partnering with College Aid Pro and be able to offer our families these amazing resources to help make college more affordable, because no matter what survey we're putting out at the Princeton Review, whether it's to our customers or just students, counselors, parents in general, one of the top worries is always the cost of college and return on investment. So this is a super exciting partnership, and I'm excited to be here tonight.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Couple housekeeping things before we kick it off. As Matt said, we love questions. Please put them in the Q&A and we'll remind you, because people will join at different times. That's the one place the three of us are going to look. You can be anonymous, so go ahead and go wild in there. And yes, this is being recorded and you will get the recording. So we're going to share a lot. So if you feel like, wow, this is a lot, it's okay. You're going to get the recording. You can always watch it again. You can share with other people in your household or friends. So no concerns about that. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. So as Matt said, he's one of the co-founders at College Aid Pro. So this truly is our mission. And what I really just want to point out here is this empowering families to shop smarter for college, because that's really what you're doing, right? You are consumers. You might not feel like it all the time, but you are. And so being here, like I said earlier, and understanding financial aid and the admissions piece, and then seeing where you fit financially and where your child might fit on the admission side, it's just a huge win. So um glad you're here again. Okay, everybody should have received an email earlier today. We know a lot of you have already done this, so that's awesome. But if you haven't set up your free MyCap account, strongly encourage you to do that. Matt's going to put a link in the chat. What this is going to do is it's going to take you through the whole financial journey you're on. It's going to take you from building that list with affordability to filling out forms to appealing to paying the bill. We know the journey you're on, and we built this software just for families. So there's a free version. We're encouraging you to set that up. You can get 3 colleges in there. As I'm talking about financial aid in a few minutes, you can actually start to understand it and then look and see, oh, that's where I fit. I can see my student aid indexes, and Peg's saying that this is what it means for my family. So it's really powerful. So if you haven't done it yet, go ahead and get that taken care of. Few onboarding questions. If you don't know the answers, don't stress. Put in your best guess. You can always go back once you're on your dashboard and change any of your inputs. So that's not a problem at all. All right, so let's talk about financial aid at the meta level, okay? So the biggest takeaway is that all the colleges are discounting. So all we hear about in the media is how expensive college is, and it is. The sticker prices, the costs of attendance, which is tuition and fees, room and board, books, travel, personal expenses, has been going up for decades, like literally 3 decades at a higher rate than inflation most of the time. And I hate to tell you if you don't know, but the most expensive schools are over $100,000. We got there. But it kind of doesn't matter, because all of these colleges are discounting their cost. Okay. It's kind of like going to Kohl's. There's always sales at Kohl's, right? So all these schools, but it's not as straightforward as Kohl's. They're all doing it, but they're doing it in different ways, and they're giving different discounts to different families and different students. So you could go through this process and not get a discount at a school. And that's the kind of stuff you want to understand as you're guiding your child as they're building their list. So how are these colleges doing this? There's 3 different ways they can cut their costs of attendance. So they can use what we call need-based grants. And as the name hints, you have to have financial need. And these grants can come from the federal government, the state, or the college. And we call those institutional grants. The colleges are by far the biggest source of that money. So free money, you don't need to repay it. So you want to maximize that bucket if it's applicable to your family. The middle bucket is also free money, but they're merit-based scholarships. So it's not based on your finances. It's solely based on your child. It's based on their grades, test scores, talent, sports, leadership, whatever that college decides that they want to give out merit awards for. They don't, many times these colleges are giving out this money and they don't even know what your ability to pay is. You haven't even submitted financial aid forms, but they are already starting this discounting, honestly, to entice your family to want to go to their school. Okay. These colleges are all about net revenue. They're going to get some families that write a full check, but they have yield targets for all along the spectrum of kids that they're going to be giving a lot of money to, all the way to a family that's full pay and everybody in between. So you want to maximize those two buckets ideally. The third bucket we call self-help. So that's loans and work study. Loans aren't bad, just a reasonable amount of debt upon graduation is what we're looking for. And that's something that we talk about in spades with our community and with all of our education. And the work study is basically your child's going to get a job, right? So they'll get a job, they'll get a paycheck. And as a family, you decide how you're going to use the money that your child makes. So those are the three buckets. I want to give you an example just to show you how this works. And this is an actual student from a few years ago. So as Matt said, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, right? So UW, University of Washington, huge school in Seattle, and then Gonzaga, private school in Eastern Washington. Huge difference in cost of attendance, 35,000 versus almost 77. So it'd be very easy for a family to look at that and say, $77,000, there's no way. There's no way multiplying that by 4. We can't do it. Don't even look at Gonzaga. But I want to show you what happened with this student. This family has a student aid index, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, of 30,000. But look what this student was given as is expected to pay. Full price at UW because they got loans, but I'm not throwing loans in there to muddy the water. But look at Gonzaga. It went down to 40,000. That was a combination of those need-based grants and merit scholarships that this student got. So it's not equal to UW, a state school, and this is an in-state student, but it's pretty close, right? So that's a very different conversation from an affordability standpoint for a family to have. And this happens all the time. You just need to understand how this can happen for your family and find good academic and personal fit schools that are also affordable. So let's talk about the need-based aid side for a few minutes. Pretty simple formula that the colleges use. They take this sticker price, this cost of attendance, and they subtract something called a student aid index. Used to be called an expected family contribution. The FAFSA was completely changed a couple years ago, but that terminology, the EFC, is still out there. So we've kept it on our slides. Sometimes they call it family contribution, but it all falls into this bucket. You're going to submit financial aid forms. Seniors do that in the fall of their senior year, and these numbers get calculated. And the colleges have that number to say, all right, that's what we're plugging into this equation. It doesn't mean that's what you're going to pay for college, but that's what they think in the ballpark of what you can pay. Most parents fall off their chair when they see it. They think it's crazy. They'll say, well, Peg, is that for 4 years? And then I have to say, no, it's for 1 year. So anyways, $80,000 school. If you have an SAI of 50,000, you've got need of 30,000. Doesn't mean the college is going to swoop in and give your child 30,000. There's some schools that might, with a little bit of work study and maybe some loans. Many schools will not. They'll gap you. But you need to understand this formula, and you need to get good estimates of your student aid index / EFC. Let's just go a little deeper here and talk about the two big buckets that make up the SAI. It's income and assets, and it's the parent's income and student and then assets the same way. So high level assets, basically your assets are included except for retirement accounts. So if you've been a really good saver and you've got a nice 401k, IRAs, Roth IRAs, those are all retirement accounts. Those are not part of the calculation. Everything else is on the table. So that means checking and savings, CDs, bonds, stock portfolio, vested RSUs, options, all that kind of stuff, if that's part of what you get through your employer. Also 529s. If you've been fortunate enough to be able to save for college for your kids, and as a parent, you have a 529 that you own, that your child's the beneficiary, that's considered a non-retirement asset, and that's considered an asset of the parents, not of your child. So jot that down. My 529 is an asset of mine. We're not going to get in the weeds tonight on this, but basically parent assets are assessed at a much lower rate than student assets. So that's one of the most common mistakes. You don't want to make that. But it is considered retirement. I mean, it is considered non-retirement. If anybody else has a 529 for your child, a grandparent, your frat buddy who never had kids, who is super wealthy, they're out of the household. So that's not part of the mix.
I want
Joint
one of those
account.
frat buddies, Peggy.
I'm thinking of you when I say that because I know
That
you
sounds like a
wanted to
nice
be in
frat
a
buddy. Give me
frat.
one of those.
We do have a couple that have done very well, but they didn't give 529s to my kids. But anyway, so my point is anybody outside of the household that you don't have to worry about disclosing that on the FAFSA. Jointly owned accounts with you and your child, that's can be your asset. And if you do happen to have custodial accounts, that third bullet down on the right, UGMAs or UTMAs, that's an asset of the child. I know I'm the student. I know I'm hitting a lot very quickly. If that's applicable to you, just jot it down. There are strategies to get it out of your name or out of your child's name, but that's a one-on-one conversation because there's a lot of moving pieces there. The last piece to assets is real estate. So every school is going to look at real estate that you have that's not the primary home that you live in. So the equity in your property, meaning the market value minus any mortgage, any liens that you have, HELOCs, that's your equity. So secondary real estate, all the schools look at the home you live in. If you're not renting and you own it, maybe the bank owns a little too, only a small group of schools, about 250, are going to look at that. But again, they're going to look at that equity. And I'm a financial planner by background. That's a big planning opportunity if you have significant home equity, because a lot of schools won't look at it. Many schools won't look at it, but just realize that's the bucket for assets. Assets are assessed real time. So literally the day you're submitting a financial aid form, you could pull up your portfolio and see what the value is. It's real time. The good thing about that is you have time to do planning if that's applicable to your family. Income, on the other hand, is a 2-year look back. We call it prior year. So you can see on the slide here, if you have a rising senior, you're going to be looking at forms this coming fall. It's going to be all about the 2024 tax year. So that's gone and done. It is what it is. If you have a rising junior, you're in that tax year. So you want to make sure you don't inflate your income. Of course, if you get a promotion and you change jobs or you get a big bonus, that's all lovely, right? But we see every year people that, they have giant capital gains that they could have avoided. So just keep that in mind. I'm planting that seed because parental income is the biggest driver for most families in the student aid index calculation. You see on the slide here, student income is part of this. It's actually assessed at 50%. But for most schools in the country, they have this student income allowance that you see on here of over $11,000, which just means the student has to make over 11,510 for it to be part of the calculation. And most kids, I've met a few through the years that have businesses and they're making more than that, but it's pretty rare. So for kids, the income is usually not part of this just because there's a really nice allowance. There are a few, about 250 schools that will expect all the students to have skin in the game, but the FAFSA, the main form that most colleges use, does not. So if you are looking, you've got your MyCap account set up and you've got it over here, like I was saying, and you're listening and saying, all right, I get it. I kind of get it. You said, I get that formula. My SAIs that I'm looking at, my estimates on your dashboard are pretty high, meaning they're over, say they're over 110,000. There's no schools that cost that yet, thank God. So that means that you will probably, unless there's any errors in there, you won't be eligible for need-based aid. But that doesn't mean you can or want to pay 75, 80, 90, $95,000 a year times four times. I had a guy put in the deal that he has twins and he has another child, so he's got three in the chat. So that's a lot of money. So you still can get discounts, and remember that's that middle bucket that I talked about. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about merit scholarships.
Take it here. And can you just show that one slide we have on merit scholarships, Peggy, and I'll talk through it before I take us through kind of a mini case study. So look to Peg's point, there's just going to be a percentage of you that no matter, there's no strategy, even the fairy godmother financial aid herself, Peggy here, she's not going to make you eligible for need-based financial aid. Okay. But that doesn't mean you can start, spending $100,000 a year on college. So how do you get your discounts? Merit-based financial aid is the number one place that we're going to look. But there's a few things to talk through there, and I think some things that are not necessarily common knowledge. You're not sharing, Peggy, just in case you're not aware there, buddy. And you're on mute.
Okay, I just unmuted myself. I was
Yeah,
sharing according to my screen. I was sharing,
I
but here we go.
promise.
I'll do it again. Are you seeing it?
It's we're on. That's my girl. That's my girl.
See, Emily, you were worried about messing up, and I do Zoom all the time, and
Oh,
somehow it
I
messed
love
up.
when she messes up. I love when she gives me an inch, I take a mile. You know that. So look at couple things to talk about here. I'm going to show you in just a minute exactly how to find out which colleges are going to give you merit-based scholarships and specifically how much. But a couple things before we do that. Number one, there's a common misperception in my experience that, hey, look at if I'm not eligible for financial aid, I don't have to do these financial aid forms. They're a waste of time. They're a pain in the ass, blah, blah, blah. Why am I going to bother? There's a lot of reasons why you should still do them. But as it pertains to what we're talking about here, there are some colleges that in order to be considered for merit-based scholarships, you got to do the forms, right? It's a smaller percentage, but I always use NYU as kind of the bell cow here. Amazing college, very expensive. They do give merit-based scholarships. But if you want to throw your hat in the ring for them, you have to do both the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So the takeaway is just do those to hedge your bets to make sure that you're not leaving any money on the table. Okay. Number two, not every college offers scholarships, right? Now, Peggy went to college during the Civil War, and back then, every single college offered some type of scholarship. But in all seriousness, right? So as you as parents, I have a feeling if
I'm
you went,
turning off my camera so I can weep, okay?
but the but the if you went to college, right? Probably every college in the country offered some type of scholarship to the most talented students. That's not the case anymore. There's about 100 colleges in the country. Scholarships don't exist, right? There's not one kid walking around any Ivy League campus on a scholarship. Nobody's at MIT or Tufts or Amherst or Williams on a scholarship. So we just have to know that, right? As consumers, especially if you have a really bright kid that's looking at, these types of colleges and has a really good chance to get in. But we're also concerned about money, but we're not eligible for much need-based financial aid. We just have to understand that and be aware of that as we're building our list of colleges. So we like to flag it. The last one here, the last bullet point that, again, in my experience, is not common knowledge at all. You got to be pretty savvy and sophisticated and probably even have some experience in this, our little wacky ecosystem here. But we have to apply to competing colleges, right? I use, in my backyard here, it's very common that when people come to Boston and they tour, obviously we got a bazillion colleges here, but some folks are really drawn to Boston University because they love how it's the if you've never been, BU's kind of like built into the city. It's like a very urban campus. Northeastern, obviously urban campus in the city here, but it has kind of its like quad, like that kind of traditional quad bubble feeling. And it also has the co-op program, which is a bit unique, this 5-year co-op program. For one reason or another, it's very common that some folks will love one college, they'll hate the other. If somebody tells me they love BU and they hated Northeastern, what I'm going to tell them is too bad you're applying to Northeastern. Don't worry, I know you're never going to go there, but we're going to use that offer to get more money from your top choice, right? This is especially an important strategy if you're not eligible for need-based financial aid because it takes that, a need-based financial aid eligibility off the table. And basically, we're just saying, I don't care if I'm a billionaire. I'm going to go to your direct competitor because it's $20,000 more affordable unless you're going to get me close, right? That's the mindset you want to have. Obviously, I'm picking on those two schools, but that is something that is commonplace across the board, and you need to be thinking about it now as you're building your list of colleges. Okay. And Peggy, I can share quick, and I'll take 5 minutes here before we pass the mic to Emily. So it was really cool to see that just about all of you have already created your CAP account. So as you're hearing Peggy say, okay, cost of attendance minus SAI equals need, you know what your SAI is, right? And that's the first step, right? The first step is to understand when it comes to this financial aid eligibility conversation, what's your SAI? And to further confuse you, there's two different types of SAIs, right? Most colleges in the country use the federal SAI. These are schools that only require the FAFSA, but there's a lot of schools and a lot of popular schools, right? All the Ivies, all the, Boston College, BU, Northeastern, and all the ones I mentioned before, Williams, Amherst, Bates, Bowdoin, right? All these types of schools, they use what's called the institutional methodology. And typically for most families, there will be a range in their SAI. Why? Why is there a range? Well, if you own your home, a lot of the schools, most of the schools that use the institutional methodology will consider at least some of that fair game, but not all of them, right? If you're a divorced or separated family, most of the colleges that use the institutional methodology will consider both households when it comes to need-based financial aid eligibility. But again, not all of them. You could be a Vanderbilt or U Chicago, an RPI, Santa Clara. Yes, they use the institutional methodology, but they only look at one household, right? Which is sometimes we feel bad at how little, some families pay. I'm being sarcastic, but at how little some families pay to go to those colleges if they fit in that bucket kind of that I just mentioned there. I'm telling you more than you need to know, right? I understand I'm talking pretty quickly here and throwing a lot at you. Where I want you focused for starters, what are these colleges actually going to cost you? Right? Before you even tour a campus, if we had it our way, you would know what that school is going to cost you year one and over the course of 4 years when it comes to things like inflation and siblings going out and things like this. But one would think that a school like Boston College and Columbia, the net cost would be pretty similar, right? Really good schools, private schools, similar sticker price. Why is it going to cost $32,000 more to go to Boston College than Columbia? This family has a meaningful amount of home equity, right? They own their home. They get about $500,000 of equity in their home. Boston College looks at that $500,000 of equity in their home and says, that's a checking account as far as we're concerned. Columbia doesn't look at any of it, right? It could be like a Tulane or a U Miami that says, we're going to look at some of the equity, but not all of it. So again, I'm telling you more than you need to know, but I want you laser focused on what are you actually going to pay at these schools. And don't be fooled by this kind of archaic strategy of, hey, we're concerned about costs so we're going to only tell our kids to apply to, state schools. This is a Massachusetts resident. It's going to be considerably more expensive to go to our state flagship university for the student than it is to go to Columbia. You want to go to UC Santa Barbara? I don't blame you. It's freaking heaven on earth, right? That's my wife's alma mater. I would have lasted about 4 days there. But out of state, $84,000 a year, and they don't give discounts. And I'm not picking on UCSB. That's kind of the UCs in general. If you're out of state, they just don't give money, and they're not cheap. So again, cut through the noise. Put your information in here and understand what these schools are gonna cost you. And let me just show you really quickly. This is how we identify how schools are going to give you, or which schools are going to give you merit-based scholarships and how much. There's dozens of admissions filters you can put into the platform here. I'll just pick a couple, right? So you can say, hey, look, my kid's going to be more comfortable at a smaller school. I know they want to stay close to home, and maybe they're thinking about majoring in, whatever, bio, okay? I can search that, and then I can just say, I want you to rank order those filters, but just show me who's going to give me the most in merit-based scholarships. right? And that's what it's going to do. And maybe Wheaton wasn't on the list, but if they're going to give you 42 grand off, let's take a closer look, right? Even if it's a school that we're going to apply to and use as leverage, or Clarkson, really good little engineering school, right? And not necessarily a name brand if you're not in the region, but they're going to give you $40,000 off regardless of your income. Or if you are eligible for financial aid, you can sort just based on that. Okay. I want to do one more thing before I pass the baton here. And what I want to do is I want you guys to just tell me your top college, right? Let's look at one or two schools to see how good are they or not with financial aid, with scholarships, etc. Put it in the chat, right? What's your kid's dream school? What's your alma mater, right? Where are you thinking about going ED to? Whatever it happens to be. Okay, I'm so good participation. Jeez Louise, I don't know if I can catch up. But let me see.
Yeah,
I
get
just
all those in there, Matt. Move it.
Yeah, we're gonna be here a while. Baylor was one I saw. Okay, pretty stinking expensive, but we're gonna get a meaningful discount, 30,000 off. Why? If I click on any college, it's gonna tell me, okay, I'm gonna get a $31,000 discount based on my need-based financial aid eligibility and based on this school's business model. The other thing that we have for every college in the country, every scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each, and again, we're gonna project really well, how much is your kid going to get? I just saw Clark there. I bet this kid, because I know this is a smart kid, they're probably going to get, I'm assuming it's the Clark and Mass. It could be somewhere else. $80,000, we're going to pay 40. Why? Okay, well, this kid's going to get, they're eligible for merit-based scholarship, right? But they're eligible for need-based grants too. They're not going to stack those on top of each other. It's very rare that colleges do, albeit there's exceptions, but they'll get the higher of those two numbers. So I'm just showing you a little bit about what you have access to, and this is what you guys should be living in this right now to get a good idea of what are these schools actually going to cost me, who's going to give me financial aid, who's going to give me scholarships, how much, and you can also change the inputs, right? So you can do one reason that we love partnering with, Princeton Review. I would guess most of you probably think of Princeton Review as like test prep help, which is obviously one of their sweet spots. But one thing that we love doing with families within our platform is to say, okay, on your practice ACT, you got a 24. What if you invested in test prep help and that went from a 24 to 28? Let's look at some of the colleges that you're considering and see what that does to the scholarship dollars. Do that, right? Do that and do it yourself, right? To say, if our ACT goes up to a 28, what happens with scholarship dollars? Because oftentimes when you're thinking about making that investment, it'll be a no-brainer to say, okay, if we can get this up 3, 4, 5 points, we're going to get a return on that investment in spades with the merit-based scholarships we're going to get from, our top colleges. So, all right, Emily, I'm sure you're sick of hearing us talking about ourselves. Let's give you some shine here.
Not at all. I appreciate always the recap. And yeah, I think that was awesome. So let me go ahead and share my slides here, switch over. So I know that Peg and Matt talked about the financial piece of things. And one of the things we wanted to do tonight was talk about fit in general when looking at colleges. So financial fit is extremely important in that process, because if you cannot afford to attend a school, then it's likely not going to be a good fit for you and your family. What I want to address is some of the other fit aspects. So when you're looking at colleges, kind of from an admission standpoint, how do you assess for fit? What questions should you be asking yourself? And how does that actually end up increasing your chances of getting into those schools that you select? So to start, this is kind of our mission and motto here at the Princeton Review, that student success is at the heart of everything we do. And oh, there we go. That includes better grades, better test scores, and better application. So like Matt mentioned, you might know us for test preparation, but we try to be kind of a one-stop stop for students in their goal of being admitted into their dream schools, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. So up first, when you're building a college list, I was having this conversation with a colleague yesterday. We were talking about her student and also our students in general. We were talking about how the college list is the foundational piece of the application and admissions process, because without a list, you don't have an application strategy. You don't know what test scores you're aiming for, whether you need test preparation help. You don't know how your extracurriculars are going to compare to the peers applying to that school, your academics. You don't know how to evaluate financial fit, all these steps. So we have to start by actually narrowing down the 4,000 universities and colleges in the US to something that's reasonable for a high school student and their parents to look at. When we do that, we usually start with about 20, this is an awkward setup, sorry. We start with about 20 to 25 schools. And one of the ways that we do that is we sit down with our families and we go through this setting criteria exercise. So what I would recommend is if you're a junior and you don't feel like you have a fully fleshed out college list, or you feel like you need to go back and kind of like reassess their college list to make sure that it's covered in all balanced areas, or if you're a younger student that's younger than a junior, this is an excellent place to start. So start by setting your criteria and getting really clear with what you want out of your college experience. I recommend students do this, and I also recommend any stakeholders that are going to be working with the student in their admissions process to do this as well. So usually that's a parent, could be a guardian, big brother, sister, grandparent, whoever feels like they need to have some say in the process. If you guys can get on the same page from the beginning, or at least get pages in the same book from the beginning, it's going to lead to a lot less contention and a smoother process overall down the road. So the easiest places to start are your major, location, setting, size, kind of like those clearly defined items that you can pinpoint to say, this is what I want to study. I want to be in these states and not these states, or I want to be in an urban, suburban area. I really don't want rural. I want a school that's bigger than my high school. I want something that's more than a couple thousand kids. I don't want more than 40,000 students on campus, things like that. Some of that might sound kind of abstract. And so if you're having a hard time kind of guesstimating those answers, especially for location, setting, and size, I always recommend go on some campus visits nearby. Even if there's schools that you've completely ruled out where you're like, there's no way I'll go to that school because X, Y, or Z reason. If it fits into like one of those buckets of it's in a super urban area, or it's in a rural area, or it's a school that's got 50,000 students or a school with 3,000 students, check it out to see, do you like that piece of the school? Like, do you like it being a small campus? Do you like it being a more enclosed campus in an urban area, or not an enclosed campus on an urban area, and things like that? So that's a good question to ask yourself and a good exercise to do. Secondarily, what academic opportunities? We're going to discuss this in the next slide or 2 slides. What types of extracurricular activities would you like to participate in? And then this is kind of like a visual exercise. Is when you think about college and you think about yourself on campus, picture yourself on your ideal college campus. What does it look like? What's around you? How are your peers interacting with you? Are there specific things you're seeing on campus, specific things that are happening around you, a specific way people are acting? So this is really kind of like taking where you are right now, whether you've visited colleges or not visited colleges, have a list or not having a list, and trying to clearly identify what is it that you want out of your college experience. Then from there, we can start looking at specific schools for fit. So once you have your criteria, if you're kind of starting from ground zero, I would say take this criteria, try to get as specific as you possibly can, and then put that into something on the web, whatever search tool that is. The Princeton Review has a great one. You can input things like major, location, setting, size, extracurriculars, different things like that. So find a tool like that, or find somebody that you can speak with, like a counselor, to start to narrow that list of thousands of colleges down to maybe tens of colleges that you can begin researching to begin with. So the 4 types of fit that we consider at the Princeton Review and our college counseling programs are academic fit, practical fit, personal fit, and financial fit. I'm going to cover the first 3 because Matt and Peg already did a lot of legwork on number 4. First up is academic fit, because realistically, that's usually the most important for both the student and the stakeholder, whether that's a parent or whoever. Number 1 thing, does that school offer what you're interested in studying? If they don't, why are you looking at it? I've had students before who are like, I really want to go into finance. Like, I know that's what I want to do. And they're looking at schools that have great reputations, but no undergrad business programs. Is that really the best fit, or are you only applying there because of the name of the school? Is it really going to give you the education that you want? So make sure that you're really taking into consideration that it has what you want to study. Seems obvious, but sometimes it's not. I won't go through all these questions because, to be honest, we don't have the time, but you guys will get the slides so you can think through some of these. But some of the important ones that come up, what are your AP or dual enrollment credits going to transfer? That also goes into financial fit as well. So some of these can cross different sections. If you're a student that loaded up on APs or dual enrollments, know that not all schools take credit for that. A lot of highly selective schools will not give you credit for dual enrollment or AP exams because they want you to take their classes at their institution and go along through their curriculum. If you're looking at some larger public schools, you very well likely can get AP credit or college credit for your AP exams or your dual enrollment credits. What are the graduation and retention rates? These are another great data point that I want to dive a little bit into. Retention rates, if you're not familiar, is the percentage of students that start freshman year in the college and then are retained into sophomore year. There's two things that you can kind of tell from this number. How is a student supporting their freshman body? And then does this feel like a transfer school, a school where a bunch of students are kind of coming in as a freshman and then transferring out sophomore year to go to another school? So if you see a low retention rate, you might want to do a little bit digging into the school to see, like, is it that more students are transferring out and that they're using that school as kind of a pathway to somewhere else? Or is the school really lacking in support systems for their incoming students? And so then students are dropping out, unfortunately, because they're not getting the support they need to be successful. Graduation rates are another one. I know you guys have probably seen these before. Know that if you see a graduation rate, pay attention to the notation on that graduation rate. And if there's not one, it is probably a 6-year graduation rate. That's how they typically are listed, which is not what most parents or students would assume, since we assume that college should be completed in 4 years. So pay attention to that. You can find 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year graduation rates for most schools. The National Center for Educational Statistics has great data on this that you can look at. And you want to pay attention to, again, the differences between those graduation rates and not just take something that you're finding, say, on a school's website or on a third-party website for face value. Think about also if there's a difference between 4 and 5 year. Georgia Tech is a great example. It's a very well-known engineering school. Most students are engineers there. They don't have a fantastic 4-year graduation rate. It's not bad, but it's not as good as what you might think for a school like that. Their 5-year graduation rate is phenomenal because a lot of their students need to take 5 years to graduate to get through their engineering programs because they're more extensive, or they might be doing like a bachelor's, master's combined program for 5 years. So take that into consideration too when you're looking at these different data points. For students that are needing support services, so if you're on an IEP or a 504 plan in high school, definitely make sure that you are considering that when you're looking at schools. Most schools offer some type of student support services, but some schools do a much better job at it than others. And so that's a really important piece of it. Let's see, I'm going to bump over to the next slide. Again, I'm not going to have time to go through all these questions, but hopefully you guys are getting the point and kind of some different things to ask yourself. Next, we're going to move to practical fit. So we've got the academic fit. I'm going to move to personal kind of cultural fit next. And so those are 2 buckets that families can kind of grasp, but a lot of times what gets left out is the practicality of actually the school and how well it's going to suit the student. So things like housing. A lot of families don't realize that not all colleges guarantee housing all 4 years, or even for freshmen. The college I went to did not guarantee housing for freshmen. I lived in an off-campus dorm because I applied very late to my college. And by the time I applied, all the on-campus housing was gone, which was a very stressful situation to find myself in. If I had researched beforehand, I could have known that. So that's something to look at. Same thing for transportation. Can you bring a car to campus if that's something that you want to do? What does public transportation look like around the area? One thing that gets brought up a lot in counseling conversations is the idea of safety on campus for obvious reasons. What I've realized over my decade plus of doing this is safe means a lot of different things to a lot of different families. Some colleges that I've visited that I feel perfectly safe on, other families have told me there's no way I would ever send my kid there, it does not feel safe. So this is a really personal thing, but that's something that should be considered because there are campuses that have reputations for being less safe. And there are campuses that have a ton of safety features on campus. So, all right, we'll move into personal fit. Personal fit is more of like how you see yourself, not just academically fitting into the school, but as a peer-to-peer relationship. So when you're thinking about yourself on campus, meeting friends, joining clubs, fitting into different groups, like, does this school feel like the right fit for you? This is probably the hardest one to gauge without visiting the school or talking to people that are currently students there or were students there recently. So I would say evaluate for the academic and practical fit first, and then move into the personal fit if the school is matching your academic and practical needs. A good place to start online is like, what's the school's value? What are the school's values? What's their mission? They're all going to be positive because it's marketing from the school, but they're different. They're a little bit different. Some schools are really focused on research. Some are really focused on the community, different aspects. Religious schools are going to have a different kind of mission. So just starting there might give you some insight into kind of like, what does this school stand for? And do I align with that? In the same vein, really think about like, do you, especially in today's climate, do you prefer a campus to have a particular political leaning? Because many campuses do. I have had students in the past year who had colleges on their list, and then because of things that happened on colleges recently, and the way that those colleges responded to those interactions, they said, I don't appreciate the way that they responded to that, and I don't think I actually want to go there anymore. That's not a school that I feel like I would fit into or that would be a good fit for me. So pay attention to how schools are responding to different things, and if that's something that aligns with your beliefs, or if it doesn't. Do you want your college to have a religious affiliation? This is always a good one because there's such a spectrum here. Do not rule out a school just because it has a religious affiliation. There are a ton of schools that were founded on religious principles, but really right now just have religious underpinnings that are, we want to give back to the community, and that's part of kind of our mission and value. For many of the
Emily,
sorry.
I have to bust in here. I went to Stonehill College, and me and my friends were at mass every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And Peggy, when we got crazy, sometimes we would go to the 11 as well. So yes, but to your point,
No. There absolutely are schools, and that's why
of course,
it's really a spectrum when it comes to the religious affiliation. There
100%.
are schools where if you are not a member of that denomination or that religion, you are going to feel very much like an outcast on that campus.
Yes.
There's not a ton of those institutions anymore, but there are some. And so it's really important that you do some research and understanding of that. And then there's schools where, of course, you've got like required chapel or mass. There's schools where you might have a religion requirement. There's schools where you've got a religion requirement, but now there's like 15 different options, and some of them are like ethics and religion these days.
Or
And
I
like
like or just an interesting example to your point here is like Boston College has a Hillel on campus. They have a Jewish community, right, among their undergraduates as a very Jesuit, school. So sorry to bust.
exactly.
Yes.
No, that's great. It's great context and information. So yeah, these are all questions that you have to kind of consider on a spectrum. And I hate that I'm having to speed through them so quickly, but some of them I want to give a little bit more context to, because I feel like just sometimes when students and parents sit down, even with a list like this, they're like, well, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to consider any religious schools. But then you might find a school that actually you really love and you're like, but it's religious. Look into it, because it actually may not matter what their religious requirements or underpinning may not actually matter that much to you, depending on how you feel about that. So, how important is diversity on campus to you? Obviously, this is a big thing that lots of schools are talking about. Reporting on this is becoming a little spotty based on some things that have happened over the past couple of years. But think about diversity in a lot of different aspects, because schools are still reporting on many aspects of diversity. It may not be racial and ethnic diversity, but geographic diversity, and how many students are coming internationally, how many are coming from rural areas, different things like that. So think about the different aspects of religious diversity on campus, different aspects of diversity that you want. And then, are there any particular extracurriculars? This one can kind of feel a little bit ambiguous when I ask families. But what I'm really asking here is there anything that you're involved in right now that you don't want to give up in college? Or is there something that you actually really want to do and you've never been able to do before that you want to do in college? And it doesn't necessarily have to be offered on the campus. And anyone that's been on a campus tour probably has that like notion in the back of their head that they're like, well, they told me I could start a club with 3 people and $25, which is the case on most campuses. But it may be more helpful to have an established community in whatever activity so that you don't actually have to establish it yourself. You can come in, start to meet some people. These are great ways to meet friends and peers on campus. But even I've had students who had very niche interests, like specialty types of cultural dances that like weren't going to be offered at that school. So we ensured that those were opportunities that were going to be in the surrounding community for that student, so that when they went to that school, they could find that community that they really wanted, maybe even if it wasn't on campus for that activity. So just consider that when you're looking as well. Finally, when you're assessing for all these different types of fit questions, you're asking yourself the question, like, how is this actually going to help me increase my chances of admission? It really boils down to you matching yourself to the right kinds of campuses. So when I talked before about a student, say, majoring in finance, but applying to these schools that didn't really match their academic interests necessarily just because they were good schools, a school is going to be able to read straight through that in your admissions essays, especially highly selective schools. One of the weed out essays that highly selective colleges have is, why do you want to come to our school? It's a version of that essay. You need to be really clear on why you're applying to that school. And by doing all of this legwork when you're researching colleges and really finding the schools that are a good fit for you, and this can run across all balance of the list, reach, target, and likely. This is not isolated to like finding a good fit only academically, like for your grades and GPA and things like that. You need to have balance between all three sections. But when you find a school where you're like, I can see myself there, like I see myself there, I see myself thriving there, I think I can take advantage of all these opportunities that they give me, I think I can contribute in these ways to this campus, that is going to make you such a more compelling applicant than you saying, well, I'm applying to this school because it showed up on a US News and World Report list for my major. So really think about that when you're thinking about finding fit for schools. If you can find the right fit schools, it's naturally going to make you a better applicant, and you're going to be able to better articulate why you're that better applicant in your application. All right, where are we on time? 9 minutes. Okay, so I'll take just a couple minutes here to talk a little bit about the Princeton Review and our college admissions counseling programs. So at the Princeton Review, we offer a handful of different counseling programs. Our most popular program, kind of our flagship product, is our Ultimate Admissions Counseling Program, and it starts with students in junior year. So for those of you that are juniors, if you're kind of sitting here thinking through like, gosh, I feel like I'm a little bit behind, or I need a little bit of extra help with this process, I know you guys, if you're students, you're probably in the thick of APs. If you're parents, you're in the thick of hearing your students talk about APs and pulling all-nighters right now. But once you get past that and into summer, that's really the time to optimize like what you're doing to prepare for your college application process. Someone asked a great question, which was like, what are the deadlines for financial aid and applications as a junior? For juniors, your applications are going to open August 1st. And there's some stuff you can't do until after your applications open on August 1st, but there's a lot that can be done before then. And everything that can be done before August 1st should be done before August 1st. Because if you think about August 1st, your app's open, you have to write all these school-specific essays starting in early August, and then you've got early application deadlines starting mid-October to early November. You've only got a handful of months to get a lot of this essay writing done for schools, applications submitted, financial aid submitted, all these different things, while you're taking your rigorous courses in senior year, while you're in leadership positions in your extracurriculars, while you're trying to have a balanced social life, all these different things. So we would love to work with any of you guys. Again, our Ultimate program is built for juniors, and it starts with you now to kind of like evaluate your profile, make recommendations on schools, work through that personal statement essay, work through your common application, and we'd love to work with you. If you're a younger student, or if that Ultimate program feels like it might be too extensive for you, we also offer what we call strategy sessions, which is 1 hour blocks of time with our counselors, which can be great for a variety of different reasons, and you can kind of build out what you need to that way. So if you're interested, feel free to call that number or visit our website. We would love to talk to you guys about what we have.
And they're gonna have the ability to, I'll talk about in just a second here, Emily, where they can book some time with our folks and we can talk about that admissions piece as well.
Perfect.
Right. So let me so first things first, I got a couple of things. Make sure you guys sit tight with me. I told you we'd have some goodies for you. Let me share my screen, and Peggy, if you can put this link in the chat, please. I already
Sure.
shared it with the folks where it made sense to say, awesome question, but we're not going to be able to tell you how to value your business until we learn really specific things and look at your tax returns, etc. So a couple things here. The first things first, guys. If you go to book an hour with us on our website or on Princeton Review's website, it costs $300, right? $299. That's amazing investment, right? You're going to get, if you have admissions questions, you can meet with those guys. Is more on the financial aid side. You can meet with us. Book some time tonight. We don't typically do this, guys. You're going to have some one-on-one time. It's a half hour. We say 15 minutes, but it's a half hour block. With one of our experts, it's going to be Jason Sloan or Kevin Murphy. Might be very, very experienced guys. They're going to learn a little bit more about your situation, let you know if we can help you. You know, ask your admissions questions, ask your financial questions, but getting that one-on-one deal. If you book tonight, if you book by midnight tonight, that's free. We kind of pull that away after. So just take advantage of that. Don't outthink that. But I want to talk a little bit about what we call our wake me up when it's over services, our cute little name here. So let me walk you through that on the financial side. Um, and the so here's a little bit more about us, right? College A Pro. We've been around the block, especially as a team. These are some of the, the director of financial aid at Harvard is a team member and colleague of ours. Director of financial aid at MIT, the former director at USC, the former director of missions at Boston University. So we've got a lot of great experience of folks that have been on both sides of the desk, right? Have been on that college side or are currently on that college side, and have also been more, advocates of the students and parents, again, kind of on the other side of the desk, which I think makes us fairly unique. At a minimum, we stand tall on this, guys, and this is why book an hour so you can ask these questions one-on-one to say, how are you going to save me? Matt said that you're guaranteed to save us at least $70,000 over the course of 4 years. Tell me how. Book that session to find out exactly how, because it changes a little bit, right, based on the family. Are we going to save you that $70,000 because we're going to show you how to lower your SAI and show you which schools meet the maximum percentage of need? Is it because we're going to show you how to apply to competing schools, how to value your business, how to help figure out your two household family, you're divorced, you're separated, who should complete the FAFSA, who should be the custodial parent on the CSS profile? Let us negotiate for you, right? Something that we're best at. We can't use the word negotiate because these colleges, financial aid counselors are very sensitive. That's what we're doing, but let us appeal to get more. We got over $1 million so far in additional financial aid and scholarships for the class 2025. It's pretty friggin' meaningful. And it's something that we love to do. We're very good at, and just help you figure out, how am I going to pull this off? I have to borrow. How am I going to get the lowest rate? I have some 529 money. Should I use it all up front? Should I spread it over 4 years? These are very good questions to ask, and it matters how you answer them. So let us take care of that, okay? And here's what we're doing specifically, right? We're helping you build that list again, making sure that you are getting qualifying for the maximum amount of financial aid, applying to competing schools. We do all the financial aid applications for you guys. You've heard about the horror stories. Oh my God, the FAFSA, the CSS profile. We do those for you. That's great, right? We worry about who needs what, where, when, how, but the how is the mission critical part, right? How you complete these forms is going to dictate how much financial aid that you get, right? And then we lead the charge on appealing and eventually showing you how to pay the bill. For our financial aid package, our Wake Me Up When It's Over financial aid package, you have unlimited hours one-on-one with your rep and with your expert from now until your kid actually goes off to college, okay? So if you want to just even consider that, see if it would be worth the investment, book some time with us, right? And now, obviously, now that we're working with the Princeton Review, we have some experts, specifically on the admission side. So, Emily, in your words, if I could ask you, let me just kind of instead of me speaking for you all, people are freaked out about the cost of college. Obviously, we just talked about some of them are freaking $100,000 a year. The last thing I want to do is thinking about spending money now, to pay for help on admissions or for financial aid. Why do you think, or how would you justify the return on the investment? Let me give my quick kind of stump speech here, because I say you should hire admissions help so you don't have to friggin' whip your kid and say, have you done your essay yet? Are you on top of your deadlines, right? I think there's some value there, but even for the kids that are all over it, right? Like why is it worth the investment, or why should they even consider it in your words?
Yeah. So every year we ask our families, why, what did you like about this program? Like, why did Why was it successful for you? And the most common response we get is just support in general. So there's so much information out there online about applying to college. And I've used the analogy before with families because a lot of this information is online. If you search, you can find a lot of the information that I'm going to share with you as a counselor, but you have to dig. You have to dig through the trenches. You have to suss out what is actually viable information, what's true, what's not true, which sources should I trust, who should I not trust. And so I've said before, I could probably build a house through the internet. Like I could watch YouTube videos and do all these things, but do I want to do that? And am I going to trust for that house to actually stay standing after I move into it? Probably not, because that's not my area of expertise. Our counselors and our coaches that we have on staff, that's why we hire them. Our average counselor tenure, they've been working in admissions or they're required to have worked in admissions, but also many of them have worked on the counseling side, either independently or at high schools, is about over 20 years. So they've been doing this for a very long time. They've been working with students. They understand how to approach this process with families. So yeah, I think just the support is the number one thing. Is if I have a question, get it answered, get the right answer. And then of course, we have always stated, when we're working to build out a college list for a student, we are considering finances in that college list as well. So we don't go to the extent that Matt and Peg and College Aid Pro do, which is great that we're partnering with them so that families really can get that actionable, clear advice. But we've always recommended, okay, this school tends to not offer as much aid. Like if you really are, if that's going to be a pain point for you and your family, like maybe let's look at some additional schools that tend to give out a little bit more merit money for a student in your position. So that's another return on investment.
Yeah, it's funny you use like the house knowledge analogy in some ways because and I stole this from an admissions counselor on our team, but it resonated with me because he's like, look at your kid, your 18-year-old, they've built their house and they've worked their ass off for 18 years to get great grades and have all these extracurriculars and just put together this great overall resume. These are great freaking kids, but it's so competitive now that like having this great house this is kind of like too harsh, but like it's almost not good enough, right? It's about how you stage it, right? It's about how it shows up online. Like, and to me, that's a lot of what you're investing in with the admissions help to be like, let's take this great kid and let's even and make sure it's just like it's presented in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where the expertise comes in. And now I was like, oh damn, okay, I get it. Like that's right. It's like, yes, they got the GPA, yes, they got the test scores, yes, they got the extracurriculars, but how do we present that beautiful package? And that's kind of the secret sauce or whatever. So so anyways, and again, in my experience having worked with you guys, we've seen the evidence, right? We've seen the evidence and seen why it's worth that return on investment. So last thing, guys, last thing that I'll show here quickly. Look at there's just a percentage of you that you're DIYers, man, and we're not going to change you. Nobody is. So what do you do if you're a DIYer? Our answer to that question is we have something called our club, right? We have our membership where, and again, this is not something we show online. If you go to upgrade, because I get a lot of questions on this, to upgrade to the premium membership cost $149, which it does. Just for you guys tonight, you can sign up, get on there for 25 bucks, get in for a month. If you like it, it's 10 bucks a month after that, $9.99. If you hate it, you're out 25 bucks. But I think you're pretty good there. But if you're a DIYer, this is the best place to get in with our services. And we have stuff like every other week. We have member only workshops every other Monday, every other Thursday, member only workshops every other Monday, office hours. We will have Princeton Review guests and experts on those things as well. So you will have access to admissions experts as well as financial aid experts. Again, this is a one-to-many deal. This is for the DIYers. You're not going to get that high-touch one-on-one service, i.e. the $25 price point. But you know who you are. If you're a DIYer, dip your toe in the water, via this. And let me just grab this. I guess it's not a link there. But anyways,
I got it. I put it in.
Okay. So everything should be in this link, guys. If we've done our job at all tonight, at least book some time with us, chat with us one-on-one. Our guys are yes, they They want to help you figure out what package is best for you. But guess what? For a lot of you, they're going to say, you're a DIYer. Get in here for 25 bucks, or you just need, you just need an hour right now. You don't need anything more comprehensive. Book a strategy session for financial aid and or admissions. And if you're somebody that makes sense for the more comprehensive, wake me up when it's over package with us at College A Pro or with Princeton Review or both. So guys, I buried the lead here, Peggy. And who'd I lose? Yeah, most people, not most people, but some people. If you do both, right? If you're like, damn, my kid needs admissions help, and I want grab the wheel for them. I need help with the financial aid part. Grab the wheel for me. If you decide to do both, we're doing some really, really cool promotions, right? Some really good discounts, especially at the beginning of our partnership here. So if you need help for both, you're gonna love, I think, what we can do for you on a price point there, and just make sure that like you guys got that kind of concierge service on the admissions front, on the financial front, and it's gonna be a freaking breeze, right, Peggy? Who said this was stressful and expensive, right? It's a breeze.
The more you know, and if you don't want to deal with it, then as Emily said, you can go digging and literally spend hundreds of hours. The biggest problem with that too is it even right, the research, because the internet has a lot of information and not all of it is good information. And
Yeah.
asking other parents in a Facebook group is, those are lovely parents, but they're in the same boat as all of you. So
Buyer beware, buyer beware. But look at great questions tonight, guys. Really appreciate
yeah,
you
really
all.
good questions.
Very engaged audience. We appreciate you from all over. And look at, if nothing else, like we always say, just keep paying attention, stay engaged with what we're doing, and that's kind of like the number one thing you can do is like pay attention, get yourself educated, stay engaged. If you need more help, you know where we are. But at least book that free consult. You're out nothing. And I think we're pulling that at midnight. So um
I think it's midnight Pacific. Somebody asked, but I told them if I'm wrong, write in and say Peg said it was Pacific, so give me my meeting and we'll honor
well, the
it.
other thing I would say is, guys, let's not overthink this here. But Emily, thanks for
We
coming
won't
on.
turn you
Appreciate
away.
you. Thanks for staying 7 minutes extra. I know you got some babes at home to tend to. So
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and great questions throughout the event. So apologies for having to speed through things, but hopefully you guys get the slides and you can kind of assess those questions for yourself.
Yeah, they'll get the recording. So, all
that's it.
right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.